What is that?
All right, we start with tears already. I'm not sure who's crying in the background, but
That's one of my many children.
I think it might be the AMPAC ownership.
Jen, you deal with all three of them for an hour while I go talk about fantasy football with my friends.
Okay, we got two asleep and one who's looking for some baby food.
All right, no. So I found the baby food. So it's Wednesday. It's October 14th. We're looking ahead to Week 6 TFFL action here on the TFFL Webcast. I'm Stick, managing editor of TFFL Media, joined as always by our commissioner chief.
Hello.
By our two-time defending champs, Berto from Jack's Giant Killers.
Hey, Stick.
Hank from the K-Wheels.
Good evening. How are you? Good to be here.
And our special guest this evening, the President Pro Tempore of the Senators, Mr. Kramer. How are you?
Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. So let's start, as we always do, or most always do, with a TFFL trivia question. Only two TFFL franchises have failed to ever score 1,000 points in any single TFFL season. Let me give you some context. In 2014, the league scoring champs were the Slippery Beavers. They had a pretty good scoring average, 73.9 points per game. Over 14 games, I include playoff games when I calculate scoring averages. 1,034 points our scoring champs scored in 2014. Two other teams, the K-Wheels and the Giant Killers, who played more than 14 games, also topped 1,000 points. So we had a total of 3 teams last year do it. 2 franchises have never, ever done it in our entire league history, have never gotten to 1,000 points, never put together a potent enough team to score 65-plus points week in and week out and make it into the playoffs and add more points in the playoffs to get to 1,000. 2 teams. Write down your answer now. I'll give you partial credit for either one.
Modern era.
We'll reveal the modern era only when we're talking about records, of course. And keep in mind, actually, even before the modern era and early in our modern era, it was a little tougher to score. We didn't have all the yardage points we do now.
So since desegregation, then.
There you go. Since 1997, 17, 18, however, whatever. Not including this year yet. Nobody's hit 1,000 points, but 2 franchises have still never achieved 1,000 points in a single season.
Good question.
All right.
Really good question. I like it. Well done, Stick.
Nice. That's a great one.
Remember, there's one franchise when we're talking about records of futility. There's one franchise you can always guess. But this week we got two franchises we're talking about that fit that bill. Okay, so before we get into our roundtable chat, start really looking ahead to Week 6, let's do our quick setting the table with a look back to Week 5. Chief, best and worst lineup moves, and then we'll turn to Hank and take a quick look at the standings after Week 5.
Excellent. I've got 2 awards for the best roster move of the weekend. And it's only fair because last week I knocked Hank for sitting his best running back on the bench. This year he started his top 3 running backs, putting Doug Murray back in for Randall. Good move. And when you have a game that's a 3-point margin, every move's a good move or a bad move. You can look up and down lines, say, if only I did this, if only I didn't do this, and you can find something. I also want to give a shout out to our, as it happens, the guest today for acquiring Willie Sneed on the Saturday FAIR process and giving him the immediate start over Green Beckham and Torrey Smith. And it wasn't enough to win, but it made a big difference in the score. So I salute that. My first, I'll also call it 2 owners for worse decisions. First would be Ralph, who did sit his highest scoring running back in Ryan Matthews, and instead started the trio of of LeGarrette Blount, Chris Johnson, and C.J. Spiller. Defendable, sure, but didn't work out. Ergo, it was bad. And I'd be remiss if I didn't include myself in on several levels of this one. For picking up Charles Clay instead of Antonio Gates because I love the matchup. Then replacing Clay, putting Clay in with Brandon Cooks and Amari Cooper, and last minute pulling Cooks and putting in Williams, which cost me 7 points, which again, enough for the win. That move was made at about 5 of 1, and at that point I was just, okay, I'm done, I'm not thinking about it anymore. Also my choice of kicker. Mike Nugent's generally my starter. He kicks for a very good offense. I'm still conditioned not to start guys against Seattle, which I think we can probably, mail that one back to 2014 at this point. But that cost me the game in starting Zaraline instead. So I definitely wear the goat horns this week. Good work to Hank and to Kramer.
Yeah, I feel lucky to have gotten it done, and and yeah, I don't want to talk much about my team. I feel horrible about it all around.
I also think we need to recognize the Lizards.
Yeah.
Well, sure, but they were driven by necessity more than a choice they made.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely chose the right guys in the FAIR process.
Yeah, and they had them both in the lineup, so.
Yeah, I was certainly not expecting them to win heading into Monday night. Gates was a great pickup for him.
Very popular request too.
And he started him right away. Again, people are making moves. I really don't expect people to be starting Zach Ertz, but I do find it curious that multiple teams have traded for him and not done anything with him. But Kramer's putting Willie Snead in there right away. The Lizards put Antonio Gates in right away. And they're paying dividends. Hank, do we have graphics?
No, we have no graphics. I got tied up with the children, so I apologize for the graphics department. The fun thing right now is that we have 7 teams above 500, and that we're so still remaining competitive. I'm sorry to say there's probably 2 teams that are, in trouble, and barring some kind of major turnaround are gonna face trouble, and the Sponge know it, and Ralph, I hope he knows it. I've tried to call him twice and I haven't heard back from him. So
Ralph has been.
I hope you're all right, Ralph, if you're watching.
Ralph has been returning texts.
Good. Okay. Good. I will try. I will try carrier pigeon next.
Does anyone else find it odd we have no 4-win teams? We have
Yeah.
a 5-win team and a mess of 3-win teams.
Yeah, we got Berto with a 2-game lead on the field. Berto.
3. It could have been 3.
It's awful. It's tough. Well done to you.
Yeah, Berto, not just a 2-game lead in your division. You have a 2-game lead, on the league.
On the league.
In the league, yes.
I care about the NOCO though.
I know.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna get interesting. We got a bunch of interdivisional games coming up that are gonna mix things up, and this leads to the other topics we're gonna get to. That maybe not tonight, but in weeks to come about potential trading partners and how that could come to pass. There's just nobody's really out of it, and it's good luck trying to improve your team, except through the free agency wire, which we know is pretty thin.
All right. Well, yeah. So the standings are very, very muddled right now.
Let me make a point here, and I think it's a contributing factor to that, and I love it. I love the fact it happened. I think it may have happened when Kevin was commissioner. I'm not sure if it was intentional or it just happened to happen. That closing weekend round robin of division games, which I think is awesome for the league. But I think a side effect of that is teams like myself. It's hard for me to see myself as out of it when I can beat my 2 division opponents and be in a tie for first place. As long as I stay within 2 games. So I think it's kind of a side effect of that late round robin.
Well, let me ask you more bluntly then, Chief, because Phil alluded to you being one of the two teams that are out of it, and I would challenge that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
And I know, Chief, you tend to be sort of in the aliens camp of being comfortable losing early on in the season if you're confident about your team.
Yeah, and really, all I need is to get McCoy back and healthy. You know, I think the sixth highest scoring in the league. I'm not performing poorly. That doesn't mean anything. Your record is what your record is. But no, I certainly haven't given up hope on the season yet.
No, you're 2 games out of it right now.
2 games out, you know, and we'll see what happens with the buys and injuries. But yeah, I think I'm still very much in it.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You did this last year.
Seems to do it every year. Seems to take me like 3 or 4 games, 5 games to realize what's going on in the NFL. Who's good, who's not.
And I certainly didn't mean to dismiss you. I'm just purely looking at the record.
I think it was a fair statement.
Yeah, in just terms of who may be a potential trading partner, either to try and improve your team and get a little better, but I don't know.
If I lose to the Beavers this week, and last I knew, Eli has nobody to throw to in this game. My other QB's on a bye. It could happen as early as next week. That's why either right at the beginning of the webcast, or maybe it was off camera. I said let's wait a week, and there'll be some deals made.
Yep.
But who's valuable on the sponge and the amp pack?
I
there's.
I think the AMPAC have a ton of at least serviceable running backs who they're going to be able to trade.
Yeah.
I
think LeGarrette Blount can help the team.
Has talent, but I've started to talk to Ralph.
Chris Johnson can help a team.
Chris Johnson,
Eric
LeGarrette
Decker
Blount.
can help a team.
Greg
Houston can help a team.
My sources are telling me that Jimmy Graham probably is not going to get traded, and that makes sense. The value, nobody's going to offer the type of value Ralph really would want to get.
But your point is a good one. We've mentioned that the last couple of broadcasts. Ralph has said, the shop's open. You look and say, what am I going to buy here, and for what?
All right,
there's very little there.
I've been knocking on the door.
Hey, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. What we will have perhaps next week, maybe in 2 weeks, is Berto's annual mid-season trade forecast, which actually I think a couple of years running now has proven to really jumpstart some trade activities. So start working on that. We'll talk about some very specific trades real soon. Let's sort of set things up, perhaps, in fact, for some trades and some talk in future weeks. We're a little more than a third through the season now. We'll call this our first trimester status report. I just want to go division by division real quick. Listen, the standings are what they are. We have a 5-0 team. We have an 0-5 team. We have a 1-4 team. And then we have 9 teams that are 2-3 or 3-2, muddled in the middle. So these are your forecasts. I want you to look and tell me who's going to win each division, who can make a run from behind, but it may not be that very far behind right now. Who's going to fade? Give us your picks real quick, division by division. Let's start with the NOCO East, which is home of our defending champs, our undefeated Jack's Giant Killers at 5-0, K-Wheels at 3-2, and the AMPAC at 0-5. Chief, what do you see there?
I don't think that the Giant Killers are going to have a great record at the end, but I certainly think they're going to win that division. I don't think they're going to be 11-2, 12-1 kind of thing. I think maybe 10-3 or so. I think they're safe to win the division.
I think they are too. Berto said it last week. If he goes 5-4 the rest of the way, he's 9-4. He'll be in good shape. Now he's 5-0. Just needs to go 500 the rest of the way. Hank is in a tough spot this week with injured running backs and running backs on bye. He's got one running back on his roster who he can start this week. If he happens to go down and Berto wins and opens up a 3-game lead, that's probably going to be insurmountable for that division.
Yeah, I think the question becomes: Are the K-Wheels a strong wild card candidate given Jamal Charles' injury, given Peyton Manning's struggles. We'll see. We'll see.
Isn't it interesting? 2 weeks ago, I was a team to beat, blowing up with 126 points or whatever it was, and look at how things change in 2 short weeks.
I think the K Wheels will still be fine. Peyton Manning will still be fine. Keep starting him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Jamal Charles injury is clearly that's terrible. That's a big hit, and honestly, it's one of the years that Phil does not have Niall Davis,
right,
with a backup, and that probably stings a little bit. Or honestly, the IR, the FA pickup of the week. We all know West is going to be on that list. So that
Terrence West, the pickup of the week.
Honestly, in years past, Phil has started Niles Davis actually last year, and he had some success with him. So that's got to burn Phil a little bit. That's a big hit, but honestly, I still see the K Wheels as a 7-8 win team, and that's why I still think I need to get to 9 wins, like Kramer just said. I want to get to 9-4 at a minimum. But I still think the K Wheels are a very viable wild card team. But I do think I will win the division.
That's the consensus. Okay, NOCO East or NOCO West, my division. Potentially could have had 3-3-2 teams here. The Boba Fats didn't hang on against the Beavers. The Lizards 3-2, Aliens 3-2. Fats are right there at 2-3. Todd Gurley starting to step up for the Fats. Obviously, Matt Stafford's got his issues at quarterback. But can the Aliens make a run here? Does anybody think that's possible? Or are the Lizards going to coast to another division title here?
I'll give you some hope. I think the Aliens have been the high scorer 2 of the 5 weeks thus far, so you can obviously put up some points. And the Lizards are good. It's going to come down to you guys, and so we'll see. It'll be good race.
I'll throw a wet blanket on that. I don't think the Aliens will win this division. I think it's the Lizards all the way. I think the Lizards have too much talent, especially with Peterson back this year. I have to believe that his receivers are going to play better than they have played. There's too much talent there. Luck is going to get healthy. I'm kind of happy that I'm playing the Lizards this week, but honestly, if the Lizards knock me off, that's the team for the NOCO that I'm concerned about winning the conference. And that was the Pac Bowl team last year, and they're loaded with talent. They've just struggled through some injuries and some poor performances this year. But I think the Lizards are the team to beat in that division, in my opinion.
And the aliens love their draft picks. They love their early draft picks. They're always one of the first teams that bail on a season, always looking to next year. I mean, you could argue they bailed during the draft, drafting all of those injured receivers. Is a guy like a Palmer valuable to a Boba Fett's team in the division? A Giant Killers when Dalton comes back to Earth, which he will any minute.
Now,
to the Wheels.
To the Wheels.
There are teams that need a quarterback. Or maybe he throws in a Perriman who hasn't shown up, or a White or Nelson. I don't know. But the Aliens like to trade. They like to bail early. If they get down 2 or if they're down 3 games in the division, look for them to be early in the active trade market.
Yeah. The only team I really feel confident in here is the Lizards, and that's assuming that Andrew Luck comes back and plays at a reasonable level as he did last year. I do think if the aliens get back Roethlisberger and he plays well and they lose nobody else to injury, I think they got the makings of a wild card team there. I think they'll be in the race. But it's hard to really get excited and call anybody a true contender except the Lizards. And again, they're underachieving for a couple different reasons. But I think it's reasonable to expect they'll turn around to some degree.
Is this the week that Kristen Michael finally gets in the starting lineup and touches a football after all those years of holding on to him?
No, it's not.
Is this the week? Is this the week he gets into the lineup?
He's going to get touches this week. I don't know if he's going to start for Dallas, but and he might.
I promise you, he won't do that this week because they're on a bye.
Well, their next game.
okay.
Their next game. He's not. Yeah, he's not in my lineup, of course. Listen, it's easy to say the Lizards are the favorites, but I'm looking at their lineup right now. And maybe they haven't made all their changes for the week.
But I'm assuming they don't have Charles Sims of Adrian Peterson intentionally.
But yeah, I mean that's who was in their lineup last week is Jay Cutler, Charleston. Danny Woodhead doesn't scare me. The receivers don't scare me like they did last year. T.Y. Hilton is not having the kind of season. Mike Evans, and Hank, you made a good point. I fall back on it myself. The Aliens have the highest league score in 2 of the 5 weeks. We've beaten everybody in the league 2 out of 5 weeks. That should scare anybody, I hope, at least a little bit.
You're the lowest ones too, right?
We've also we're hit or miss.
So have I. I've been the high and the low, but I'm just saying it means you can do it, and at some point in time you can unload, and if you do it at the right time, then
And I might be eating these words a week from now, but we're facing the Ampac this week. We're 3-2. Ralph, please make a trade, clear your roster, and I could very well be 4-2 next week, and that sounds a lot better than 3-2. And I think at that point we got to start. Me too. I have to start taking the Aliens a little more seriously as a contender this year. But yeah, right now the Lizards are the top dog in the division. Okay, let's move on to the SoCo. And the always interesting SoCo East, where the Devils have ruled that division for a long time, but these guys have been tight for several years now. The Mongols, even when they struggle and are at the bottom of that division, tend to be a 6-win team. So we're looking at the Mongols right now at 3-2, a surprise team thus far this year. The Devils and the Beavers 2-3, with the Beavers eking out a win in Week 5. Are the Mongols really going to hold on here? I think a lot of us seem to think the Beavers, on paper, might be the strongest team.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. Then I can get me a refill. I think the Mongols are the best team here. The Beavers should be. I think they've mismanaged their roster terribly. I think they got a horrible draft. And some players are underperforming. But I mean, if you look at the roster, where are they going to get the points? I don't see it outside of Rodgers. I think the Mongols are balanced. I'm convinced Devontae Freeman is a legitimate fantasy player. Guys like Alan Hearns are putting up points every week. They still have Travis Kelce, who's a good player. Des Bryant's got to come back at some point and give his team a shot in the arm. But right now, Buck Allen's a starter in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, or potentially. I think Forset's up in the air. I think there is a lot of talent on this team, and if they avoid the catastrophic injury, I like where the Mongols are.
I'm not so critical on the Beavers' mismanagement of the roster. I think mismanagement of the draft, I'll agree. And I said it in probably the first webcast of the season. I didn't like the draft with those 3 first-round picks. I don't think they got it done. But honestly, you look at this. You got Aaron Rodgers, Le'Veon Bell, and Demaryius Thomas. I mean, that's 3 studs there. That's a team that can carry you to 7 wins. Right there, those 3 guys. And you throw in Alshon Jeffrey and Jordan Matthews. I mean, it is a strong roster, so I do disagree with Chief in terms of mismanaging his roster. Mismanaging the draft, completely agree with, and I said that from day one. He screwed up the first round with those picks. But I think this team is going to be good. I think the Beavers are primed to make a run. But there's mitigating circumstances to that too. Is Peyton Manning actually going to throw the ball to Demaryius Thomas? Can he throw the ball to Demaryius Thomas? That's a limiting factor. But Le'Veon Bell certainly has proved that he's going to get it done, and Aaron Rodgers has proved that he's going to get it done. So he's got two of the best right there, and Demaryius Thomas. So I can't see how this isn't a 7-win team. I can't see how this isn't a wild card team at worst or winning the division. What I would say is I think the Devils are in trouble actually in this division. That's the team that I don't think is going to make it. I like the Beavers, and I think they're going to be at least a wild card team.
I think you've given out 3 wild card spots now, Berto. You're just throwing them around.
Nice. I like the Beavers too. I don't think they're as bad. I think I mentioned it last week that I was surprised that the Beavers were where they were at this point of the season, and they do have a few good pieces, but I hate to admit it, Peyton is a big part of Demaryius Thomas being valuable. Le'Veon Bell showed he's really good, and Rodgers we know is really good, but he's not getting points from anything else than that right now. And he's not getting it. And the Mongols are good. The Mongols are going to be a playoff team, I think. Whether they can, I think they'll do just fine.
The thing about the Mongols, Des Bryant's been injured. Eddie Lacy hasn't done anything. If those guys, Bryant will be coming back soon, and Lacy will pick up his game. So even if Devontae Freeman falls off, they should still continue to score a good amount of points. Okay, our last division we're going to check in on real quick. Kramer, your division. Chief, your division, the SoCo West. We talked a lot about the Senators last week. 3-2 now after a Week 5 loss, but still atop the division with the Hams at 3-2, and the Sponge, of course, at 1-4. You could say this is a wide open division. We know the Sponge are going to make a run back at this. I've been saying I think the Hams are a little overrated. The Senators might have streaked out a little stronger than they really are. Where is this division going to end up? Let's start with somebody not in the division. Hank, what do you got?
Well, I played the Senators and lost to the Senators, so I know that they're very capable of scoring points. They got a lot of good young talent. I mean, they're probably a year ahead of being dangerous, but they're good. They can win games. They need it to be low scoring, But and we'll see how that goes as it gets colder. But it's a tough one. I think the Sponge have to get hot, like starting this week, or certainly next. And and the Hams, are again, they're going to be, I think, at best a 7-win team. And so Kramer's that's his benchmark you got to get to. And if you guys can get past that, then that'll probably win you the division.
Yeah, this is the most perplexing division, I think. I think anyone can win this, but I have to. I don't know. Looking at the rosters, I guess I have to give the nod to the Senators. Just the fact that he has Tom Brady, Giovanni Bernard, much to my dismay, is playing well. So I don't know. It could go any way, but I'm gonna. If I were to lean one way or the other, I would put things in Tom Brady's hands to help the Senators out to 7 wins versus anyone else in that division. But it could go either way. I don't know what to make of this division, but I think a 7-win team comes out of there as the division winner. I don't think you're going to get a wild card team out of this division.
I don't know if you saw the rolling average report section, or if you give it any credence, frankly, of the commissioner's report. The Hams are terrible, production-wise. They're the second lowest scoring team in the TFFL. And you look at the team and you see, all these guys we thought were going to have really great years, these Calvin Johnsons and C.J. Andersons and Antonio Browns. Obviously, the Roethlisberger injury has really shut down Brown. But it's after 5 weeks, I don't think the numbers are going to lie too much. This is right now the center's division, unless they just start tripping over themselves. I certainly wouldn't bet on myself making up 2 games, although it's certainly possible. I just don't think this is a Ham's year unless every player on the team starts, simultaneously getting a lot better. I don't think they're going to win too many more games.
And like every team, things have to break right. So far for my team, knock on wood, things have broken the right way, with Bernard being relevant again, with Hillman being a 1A or 1B in Denver, even though he hasn't been a stud. TJ Yeldon is getting the volume, which I love to see. He's one of the he might be the only guy who's getting 20 carries a game in the NFL. My receivers are a wild card. Willie Snead, I love the pickup. He's emerged as the #1 receiver in New Orleans. Jarvis Landry gets, if this was a PPR league, this guy would be Marvin Harrison, but it's not a PPR league. And then I got some guys who have been inconsistent. Torrey Smith goes for 160 and 2 touchdowns one week, and then 2 catches for 19 yards the next. Aguilar has not shown up. He's been a big disappointment for me. Green Beckham is raw. I'm hoping he blossoms here in the second half. And Randall, he's another Torrey Smith. You can't trust him. So far things have broken pretty well for me. I've been scoring points. I think this week was my lowest scoring week with 58 points. So I'm in the mix, and at week 5 I'll take that. After the decade that I've had, I'll take it. Entering week 6.
All right, Kramer. Let's segue into our next topic. We talked a lot last week about the Senators. We specifically raised the issue.
Not enough. I don't think you spoke enough about it.
We're going to talk more about him right now. We're going to talk about the Tom Brady dilemma. And let me start with a question that I think you can at least give us an honest answer to, and then you can bullshit us from there. Clearly, you had your sights set on Marcus Mariota in the draft. You took him without any regard to bye week conflicts with Brady as your keeper. Coming into week 1, was it on your mind that you'd be trading Tom Brady at some point this season?
I don't think in week 1. I didn't know how he'd come out of the chute. There was all the hype of the revenge year, and he's going to come out guns blazing. But I didn't. I wasn't sure of that. But he has. He's been the #1 QB in the NFL, and he's available. He's available to the highest bidder. As each week progresses and as his numbers, remain, over 20 points a game, and the Patriots keep winning, if they win another Super Bowl, Brady might just hang it up. And I don't want to be stuck at the end of the year with, a nice story. I'd rather have the draft picks. So I'm listening. And while I listen, I'll continue to start him and plug in 20 points a week at the top of the lineup.
But why would you? I mean, I get getting a bounty for him, but you're not going to get a bounty, right? There's only a limited amount of teams that could trade for him. Like you said, it's been a decade of futility. Now's your opportunity to ride Brady to a playoff win or potentially even a Pac Bowl once you get in the playoffs. So why even dangle him?
I'm listening, as I always do. I listen to all offers.
But it sounds like you're more than listening. You're
casting.
Hoping.
casting. You're hoping to trade him, and in my mind, that's the guy that can lead you potentially to the promised land this year. Once you get
Here's,
to the playoffs, all
here's the
bets
co-owner. Here's
You-
the co-owner who might have something to say about it.
Should you trade Tom Brady, co-owner?
Here's the
I can't believe this even goes on and that you all are so serious about this conversation.
Yes.
It's remarkable.
Yes, we really are that dorky, but we're here and we're enjoying ourselves. Bonding.
I love that you're enjoying yourselves. Carry on, fellas. Now I get to watch SVU in peace. Good.
We all have our vices.
Indeed.
Yeah, amen.
Hey, Kramer, how was the good one?
It was better than hoping and waiting for a Ruben Randall touchdown. So yeah, am I casting? Am I fishing for a trade partner? Hey, I listen to all offers, and if I don't hear one that I like, I'll just continue to start Brady and his 20+ points. And continue to win.
And I think Kramer's exactly right. But if somebody comes at him and gives him the right kind of offer, of course he's willing to move him. It's Kramer, and he's got Mariota sitting there, and he knows that's the long-term answer. So
Or
of course he wants to
Tyrod
get something.
Taylor.
So what's the right offer, Phil?
I probably don't have the right mentality because I'm not trading for him. That's not what I would do if I'm going to try and get a quarterback because I got other issues beyond this year if I'm going to trade for a quarterback.
Jamal Charles isn't doing anything for you right now.
Shut up! I don't want to talk about Jamal Charles. I mean it's just unfair.
Jamal Charles
Totally
for Tom
unfair.
Brady?
I hate this game. I hate it. But yeah, I mean, I got one running back available to start for me this week.
Well, Kramer, you put something together. Andy Dalton plus what gets me Brady? The number two receiver, the number two quarterback right now. What gets me Brady with Andy Dalton?
There's not that much of a gap between the two.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dalton and Gronk.
So hey, going back to the SoCo West, my answer to that division is if Brady stays a Senator, I think the Senators do end up winning that division. So again, we talked about this last week. We'll probably talk about it more. If the Senators end up at 5-6 as we approach the trade deadline, yeah, they might take a different kind of offer at that point. But I think if they hold on to him, they will end up at least 7-6 and probably win that division. Okay, one more big topic we'll talk about this week. It's a topic I actually started raising on draft weekend. Let me give you the topic to get you thinking, and then I'll try to set it up just a little bit here. How hard is it to dig out once your team bottoms out and you end up with that first overall pick or the second overall pick? And we could talk about the inverse of this. Obviously the Giant Killers and other teams at the top, the K-Wheels have been on the top for several years now. And once you get up there, you tend to stay up there. But let's focus, for instance, on teams like the AMPAC. In year 2 now of a rebuilding campaign, do they have 5 more years of this? Because there used to be a time when a single disastrous season or two led you to the number 1 overall pick. You grabbed a stud rookie running back who was going to add 12, 15 touchdowns, to your lineup year 1. You could leapfrog teams in the middle and be right back in the playoff hunt. Real quick, the Lizards, I think, are the classic example of this. They were 3-9-1, 3-8-2 in 2005, 2006. Drafted Adrian Peterson in 2007, and have been a pretty strong team ever since. It doesn't happen like that anymore. The Senators can attest to this. The Aliens can attest to this. Some of you may not have experienced this very recently, but I just want you to look around the league, and yeah, it's just not as easy to rebuild. Even as we all shed 13 players from our roster, put them back in the pool. We get these rookies to draft. It is hard to turn around a franchise in a year or two.
I'll chime in here. I think the Senator. I think the AMPAC put their best foot forward last year to dig themselves out. Now, a couple of their moves didn't pan out, but it's still TBD. but they got Melvin Gordon. They got a lot of other things going for them. Jimmy Graham obviously had a tough year. But I think the Impact did what you have to do last year, which was shedding players and getting draft picks. Maybe some of the things they did, they traded like a C.J. Anderson. There were some things maybe I didn't agree with fully, but they really were aggressive in trying to turn things around. And I could say the same thing. You could say the Senators, after a few years of struggling, made a commitment in this draft to shed players, to trade Antonio Brown, to collect draft picks, to collect high draft picks, and really make a huge turnaround effort with a lot of high picks. So I think the Senators and Impact put their best foot forward to turn things around. I think when you see other teams struggling year after year, if you do poorly and you miss on the third or fourth pick, I remember, I went Lawrence Moroney, Jonathan Stewart, who was okay, and McFadden, and dicked around for a while. It's tough to do that with just draft picks. Just drafting number 1 or number 3 overall isn't going to turn things around. You got to be more aggressive than that to turn things around. And I think both the Impact and the Senators this year have put their best foot forward to really turn things around. And obviously the Senators are paying dividends. The Impact not so much, but the Senators have turned things around rather quickly.
I don't know if I'd say rather quickly, although
I wouldn't either. We'll see.
I think that
this year. Different this year than past years.
I think that if you draft well, I don't think it's hard to turn yourself around. I mean, yeah, you can say Kramer's been bad for, let's say, 5 years, towards the bottom half of the league, but he could have just as easily did what he did this year 3 years ago if he drafted better. He had those number 1 picks. Ryan Matthews didn't turn out for him. Mark Ingram didn't turn out for him. Danny Thomas didn't turn out for him. Right? So, we talk about Ralph. Remember, Ralph was in the other category for about 10 years. He was a very, very good team, who was always in the Pac Bowl or in the semifinals. I don't really think it's all that hard. I understand the point that there's no more, or very, very few, less than 1 a year, stud running backs coming out who are really difference makers in today's NFL. Even fewer quarterbacks than that. So I get that. But I don't think the odds are stacked against you that much. I think it's very possible with some good drafting, good trading, shrewd trading, good luck to turn things around in 1 year.
No, but I mean, I guess that's my point, Chief. It's about it's not about just keeping your draft picks, right? I have the number 3 overall. I have a 2nd round pick. I have a 3rd round pick. It's about what the Senators did this year, as opposed to maybe what the Senators did the last few years. Senators came in with an aggressive game plan, had a lot of 1st and 2nd round picks, wheel and dealed them, moved up, got the guys that they wanted, multiple 1st round picks. That's what I'm talking about.
No, and I'm peeking at the archives here real quick. I mean, the reality, Chief, is things tend to go in streaks. People make the playoffs 5 straight years, and then once they fall out, they miss it for 5 straight years. I'm looking. The Devils have made it for 5 straight years now. The Giant Killers have made it 6 straight years. The K-Wheels went 5 straight years missing the playoffs, and now are making a run. This will be their 3rd straight year making it if they do. The Senators and the Aliens, 2 good examples of teams that have struggled. It takes where I would agree with you is it takes several successive drafts to really build a team that gets you back out. And if you have several drafts in a row where you don't hit on your players, you're going to just bury yourself.
I want to comment real quick and just say I think really what it comes down to is you got to have, and I'll say the number is 3 rocks in your franchise, 3 guys who are studs that are going to carry your team week in, week out. And that's why the high draft picks are important. You got to hit on a couple of those. Maybe you pick one up in free agency, it goes nuts. But if you look back at the teams that have really been good for a long time, it's because they have LaDainian Tomlinson, Priest Holmes, Aaron Rodgers, and I think Berto, maybe has managed to do that with, but he's got Gronkowski, who's now kind of one of those kind of players. kind of juggling pieces in and out. But I think it's really about trying to get those really star pieces that can anchor your franchise to build around.
If you want a 1-year turnaround, I'll tell you the one piece you need is a strong quarterback, and that's what we're seeing with the Senators. Tom Brady having one of his epic seasons, and it's why the Mongols finally maybe turning things around is they've gotten terrible quarterback play. Phillip Rivers may only be a 1 or 2 year solution, but he's putting up strong numbers at quarterback, and the Mongols are 3-2 as a result. Okay, let's wrap up here with our trivia question, the answer to our TFFL trivia question.
I feel good.
We're looking for two teams that have never quite built a potent enough roster to eclipse the 1,000 point mark in any single season. Okay, I guess that's Kramer, who's got the Mongols and the Fever. You got the Mongols and the Sens, the Mongols and the Fats, and Hank, who do you have? The Senators and the Fats. All right, well, the Mongols are always a good guess. So the Mongols are one of the two here. The Senators are, in honor of our guest, I built a question around our guest, are the other team. I think your high, Kramer, was 983 points in one season.
Good job, Berto.
So, Berto gets both parts to this correct. I'll tell the 981 points, Kramer, in 2007, your best season. All right, let's take a quick look at the Week 6 schedule, as Ralph would say, and tee up our game of the week for us all to dissect together.
Gladly. We do have on tap the 2014 Tactical Rematch, Lizards at Giant Killers. We have the Devils visiting the Senators, the Sponge hosting the Beavers, Aliens at the Ampac, the Fats at the K-Wheels, which leaves us with the game of the week, Mongols at Hams. And the 2 3-2 teams, and I kind of hinted at this within the report, I think one team is underperforming at 3-2, and one team is overperforming at 3-2. So I think it's a good chance to see how good are the Hams. Are the Hams really a contender for the SoCo West division? And as well as the Mongols, can the Mongols bounce back from underperforming loss last week? Can Devontae Freeman keep going? Can Phillip Rivers keep going? And it'd be very easy to put the Giant Killers versus their opponent as the game of the week, but thought I'd mix it up a little bit today. In this game, as you can probably tell from my comments so far today, I would expect the Mongols to win going away here, without looking at bye weeks or anything else. It's hard for me to imagine the Hams pulling this off. I shouldn't say that. The Hams have talent, but it's hard to imagine a switch being thrown at this point, and everyone starts playing to their ability.
Yeah. Just to chime in on this one, so you got Matt Ryan Thursday night. Always the underperforming quarterbacks on Thursday night games. We'll see, but they are playing the Saints, so that could be Matt Ryan could have a good game there. Pending Julio Jones, is Julio Jones going to play Thursday night?
He is. We're going to see, though. They said he might be on a snap count, which is never good news.
Okay, so that could be big, and then Rivers against Green Bay on Sunday. So I don't know what to make of that. Eddie Lacy's got to show up at some point, you think, for the Mongols. To Chief's point earlier, Mongols are doing this without Eddie Lacy, really doing much of anything yet. If he gets into gear, Mongols are going to be even more impressive. And Lacy and Freeman 1-2 punch is going to be pretty potent.
I'll just throw in Mongols are favored by 1 at the moment.
Any idea why the projections go to 1/100th of a point this year?
They're that accurate.
Who knows?
So some leagues do play fractional points.
Yeah, but ours doesn't. So Rashad Jennings projected for 3.99 points,
All right.
We'll get that
for
fixed.
instance. Yeah.
Hope they don't lose by .01.
Now this is a big week because I mean it's so tight that there's going to be teams who are you need to win the next 2-3 weeks or are the make or break part of the season.
Not only that, but looking way into the future, what we've got going on right now for the next few weeks is conference positioning. One division playing the other, and so the Lizards, Giant Killers, or the Mongols, Hams. These could be games that decide who gets the bye, who wins the conference title at the end of the year. These are big games. Okay, so Chief, I don't know if you have a rant this week, but perhaps some reminders, our usual Thursday reminders, our free agent reminders.
Falcons, make sure they're in your lineup. Get your, pigskin pick'em things in. Get the lines out.
With the lines out.
I think by now this thing kind of runs itself. I'll yield my ranting time to anyone else, including our special guest, if he has something he wants to rant on.
No, I came loaded for bear, ready to go off on the conditional free agent IR picks. Sloppy work by the rules chair, not getting the rule book out. I was reading an outdated rule book, which has very vague language on this topic. I continue to disagree with the commissioner on his interpretation of that Article 4, Section 9. I don't think by putting in a conditional IRFA pick that you are telling anyone what they can, what others have picked, because that's what that rule means. You're telling owners who someone else has picked, and I don't read it that way. I will put in a rule proposal in the off season to permit conditional picks. I don't think it's creates any disadvantage to anyone, and then the league can vote. But I consider it case closed. I will not put in any more conditional. I am curious if the commissioner will say, if he knows, whether any of my conditional picks, which I've already used my IR picks for the year, did I not have to use an IR pick?
Last year, you needed to use an IR pick. The first time this one, you had to use an IR pick. To be honest, I don't know whether last week you would have or did not need to. There was a lot of.
We did. I used the IR. I was charged an IR pick for Willie Snead. I probably needed that.
Yeah, I can't say for certain whether you did or not. The other two cases, I do know for certain you did.
All right, so it's a moot point anyway, Krim. Don't even worry about it. You had to use the IR pick to get the guy you wanted. You're good.
Yeah.
No, and it's good we clear up the language. We had this debate over email last year. I allowed the conditional picks during my commissionership. I know Ralph did as well. We both said that in emails, Ralph and I. I don't know, Phil, if you did or not. And Kramer, I believe you did as well.
I did, and I think Mike Giovenco did as well.
Yeah, so we've kind of been all over the place on this, but it's good we actually finally have it sorted. So. All
right, and sure, if that's the direction the league wants to go next year, I encourage your rules proposal. It's as long as everyone's playing under the same interpretation, fine.
Yeah, it's really just the commissioner has to be the one in charge of, like you said. And I'm not sure 5 years ago or 8 years ago this was even something people argued about. It's just something either the commissioner handled or didn't.
Yeah, and the commissioner is the one who has to handle it, and it's his call. And Chief actually made this call a year ago and is being consistent and making that same call this year.
No, I agree with Chief's what he said last year. So I mean that's fine. But yeah, so now we know the way forward, and I think we have it cleared. So that's good.
We're talking a lot about a settled issue.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Move along.
All right, so we're moving along to week 6, and we've talked a lot about this, but this is as exciting as ever in the TFFL. Berto, I don't mean to knock you, but I think your team will probably come back at some point. Going to lose at least a couple games here and there.
I want to win this week, though. I have to beat the Lizards.
I'd like you to beat the Lizards, and heck, if you beat the Lizards, they fall to 3-3. I beat the AMPAC like I should. Suddenly, my division is going to be a lot more competitive down the stretch. We talked about Chief and Kramer's division is so tough to predict. And this is getting fun. And again, these conference battles have a lot of implications down the line. So big week 6 ahead. Might start seeing some trades soon. We'll see if Ralph is active enough. I don't know how much we're going to settle in week 6 that will open up other trading opportunities in the weeks ahead. But good luck to all you guys. Berto, yeah, go beat the Lizards, please. And we'll be back next week, perhaps again with our trade forecast. We'll have Bill on soon to do a rookie outlook for the 2016 draft once some owners start thinking a little bit more about 2016. But for now, good luck in week 6, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Later.